In this tutorial, I will explain how to work with the AwareIM calendar. To the end user, the calendar looks like this. This is the example from the CRM sample application. The calendar can show appointments, tasks, or events. The user can create events, click on the event and see its details, delete events, change views, traverse the calendar, and so on. So what does the configurator have to do to define such a calendar in his application? First of all, it is important to understand that the calendar can only show appointment objects. Appointment here is just a name for all objects that have start time and end time. It can be an appointment, or it can be an event, or it can be a task. You can provide any name to your AppointmentLike object. The important thing here is that this object must have a number of required attributes, such as start time, end time, and subject. Let's look at an example. Suppose that we create an application that manages tasks of staff members, and each staff member can look at his tasks in a calendar. For simplicity, we will assume that our staff members will be represented by the regular user object that AwareIM creates automatically for each business space. For more details about this object, please read the user guide or watch the access levels tutorial. We now need an object to represent tasks. Since tasks will be displayed on the calendar, it has to be an AppointmentLike object with a number of required attributes. To create such an object, we select the Business Objects node, click the right mouse button to bring up the pop-up menu, and select Add Appointment Object. This automatically adds a new object to our system with all the required attributes already defined. We can give our own name to the object and we'll call it Task. Now let's go through the attributes that AwareIM has added for us. Note that you cannot change the name or type of these attributes. The important attributes here are start time, end time, and subject, which define the start time and end time of the task and its subject respectively. You may or may not use the other attributes, such as priority and others, but you must use these three, since they will be shown in the calendar. We can also add any other attributes to this object. In this particular case, we will add the owner of the task, that is the staff member who this task is for. The owner will be a reference to the regular user object. For more details about references, please watch the relationships tutorial. We will also assume for simplicity that staff members will be creating their own tasks, so we will add a rule that will automatically assign logged-in user as the owner of the task. For more details about business rules, please watch the business rules tutorial. So when the task is being created, we assign the regular user as the owner of the task. Note also that AwareIM has automatically created an Appointments business object group and added our task object to this group. All objects representing appointments should be added to this group. For more details about business object groups, please watch the business object groups tutorial. Now we're ready to set up a calendar. To do this, we will need to define a query first. For more details about queries, please watch the queries tutorial. So we'll give it a name. The query will look for tasks allocated to the currently logged in user. So it will look like this. Find all tasks where the owner of the task is the currently logged in regular user. Now, to get the query to display the results as a calendar, we go to the Display Results dialog and select the Calendar Scheduler radio button here. There's quite a lot of options that you can use to customize the look and feel of the calendar. For example, using item display rules, you can display events in different colors. Or using the table here, you can specify which views will be shown on the calendar and which one will be the default view. The options here allow us to specify how the events will be edited. The standard method will display the default form of the object when the user clicks on the cell in the calendar. This behavior can be overridden by specifying a custom process. Additional options in this dialog allow us to control whether the user will be able to move, resize, or delete appointments, whether there will be any context menu when the user clicks the right mouse button on the event, and many other options. Feel free to explore these options on your own after you watch this tutorial. For now, we will accept the default options, but I will enable all the views except the timeline views. I will talk about timeline views a little later in this tutorial. Let's see now how the calendar looks like. Before we do this though, I will add a menu operation to start our query to the menu of our visual perspective. For more details about visual perspectives, watch the visual perspective tutorial. Now we're ready to test our calendar. So I put the version under test and log into the browser. Now we can run our query. And as you can see, it displays the calendar, which initially is empty, of course. So let's create a task by clicking somewhere on the calendar. Here we can specify the subject of the task, the starting time, the end time of the task, and here we can also specify whether the task will be a recurring one. And now the task has been created and displayed on the calendar. We can now click on the task to edit it, or we can move, resize the task, or delete it. Let's now create another staff member. And now let's log out and log in as this staff member. I now specify John as the username. And now let's run our query again. You can see that the calendar is empty because it only shows the tasks of the current user and there are no tasks for John yet. Let's create a task for John. So we have created it for the same day as the admin's task. So as you can see, the calendar displays only tasks for the currently logged in user. We are logged in as John, so the calendar only displays John's tasks. And we can change the views and look at the task in the day view, for example. Let's now look at the timeline views that I have mentioned before. Timeline views are useful when you want to show schedules of some resource. Usually a resource is a person, a staff member, a doctor, a customer, but it can also be a machine, for example. For our application, let's assume that we want to look at the tasks of each staff member so that we can see a list of staff members on the left and a list of their tasks on the right. Timeline views can display the data just like this. Here is an example from the CRM sample application, where it displays tasks of staff members. We can see a list of staff members on the left and their tasks on the right. Let's create a calendar with timeline views to show tasks of staff members. We could have enabled timeline views for the query we have already created, but this query only shows the tasks of the current user, so the timeline view will be quite limited. Let's create another query that shows tasks of all staff members, and then the timeline view will show schedules of every staff member. So we create a new query, give it a name, and this query will look for all tasks. We select the Calendar Scheduler radio button again, and this time we will also enable all timeline views. For the timeline views, we also need to select resources. The timeline views actually displays two lists, a list of resources, staff members in our case, on the left, and a list of tasks on the right. The query defines a list of tasks, and to define a list of resources, we need to specify the resource that a particular task belongs to. The resource must be represented as a relationship between the task and the object representing this resource. In our case, this resource is the reference to the owning staff member. So I select the owner attribute, and then we can also specify the attributes of the staff member that will be shown in the calendar. In our case, probably just the login name. Let's now add our query to the menu and see how it works. So now I log into our system again. It doesn't matter whether I log in as admin or John, the calendar will look the same since it shows all tasks. Now I run the query and I see the timeline day view, which shows schedules for one day only. Let's go to the day when we have created our task. We can see now that there are 2 staff members, Admin and John, and we can see their tasks. In this tutorial, I have explained the basics of working with the calendar. Make sure that you explore the many different options of the calendar, and for more details, please refer to the user guide.